It really feels like the calm before the storm as we wait for the World Series to end and free agency to open. How will the Cubs and the rest of baseball build their rosters? What moves do you think the Cubs are going to make? The Athletic put out their best fit free agents to the Cubs. I'm going to talk about some of that. How about an extension for Pete Crow-Armstrong? We love Hollywood Pete, but does it make sense to extend him? How about Shōta Imanaga? You picking up the option? How about Drew Pomeranz? Yeah. And if Brandon Hyde doesn't get a job and Ryan Flaherty does as a manager, would you want him back? I would. I'm going to get into all that right here on the Cubs Baseball channel. Like, subscribe, thumbs up, get in the comments section. Be part of what we're doing on a daily basis. And let's get this show started. What do you say, everybody? Mick Gillespie, Cubs Baseball channel, and it is great to talk to you guys today. The offseason is here, and you don't always have a lot to talk about, right? Like, so I want to do a show that you want to watch. If I don't think I can do that, then I'm not going to put one out because I want you to watch them, and I feel like some days, are better than others. And it's about to heat up, honestly, as soon as the World Series is over, to see some of those guys that are going to be in the mix to join the Cubs, what the Cubs are going to do with the roster. I think the Cubs should make a trade with Baltimore for Adley Rutschman. I've said that before. I think that you could go out and get a super player in him. But what about the free agents that are possibly linked to the Cubs right now, according to The Athletic, right? So let me get into that because I love The Athletic. Jim Bowden is one of their top analysts. He's a former GM, and he's passing the time right now trying to figure out where the top 50 free agents may go. Now, we only care about where the Cubs could end up with these free agents. And so on this list, Framber Valdez is one of those guys, left-handed pitcher. Maybe I've heard his name kind of bandied around. Bo Bichette, we've talked about him. He's part of the Toronto Blue Jays, who are in the midst of a World Series right now. But it was rumored a few years ago that the Cubs were interested in him. Of course, his dad was a big leaguer. Bichette's a good player. Alex Bregman, Cubs were in the mix for Bregman last year. He signed with the Red Sox, obviously opting out, right? Ranger Suarez, left-handed pitcher, another guy like Valdez, who the Cubs would definitely love to have. Right-hander Dylan Cease, we talked about that. Righty Zach Gallen, Michael King, another Padre. And then two guys that are on the team right now, Brad Keller and Drew Pomeranz, right? All free agents, all on that list. What was interesting to me is one guy that's not on that list is Kyle Tucker, right? And you wonder now, and I do, would the Cubs, and are they going to go after Tucker? Are they going to try to keep Tucker on this roster? And I don't know. I feel like Owen Casey isn't Kyle Tucker, but I think he's potentially a really good player. And he's going to be on the big league roster, or they're going to trade him. But he's going to be in the big league some way or the other next year. And so, I don't know if that's why he's not on there, but it's going to cost a lot of money. The Cubs have definitely not had the appetite for those enormous contracts, partly because the most money they ever paid was to Jason Hayward. And it's known as one of the worst contracts in baseball over the last 20-some years. He just didn't live up to it in any capacity. And then you paid a bunch of money for Dansby Swanson. And, Dansby's been about what you expected. I mean, like, I look at Dansby. He's not, to me, a superstar hitter. He's okay, but he's a really good player defensively, runs the bases. He's a leader. In the Padres series, he showed you exactly what he can do with his glove. But is he worth that much money? I don't know. For years, you just had like a really good defender at shortstop. Maybe you didn't get a lot of hitting out of him, batted him 9th or 8th. and you spent the money in other areas. Now, with that said, I wanted to talk about this, which has been a big topic. And the reason why is I saw where they were talking about on the Bleacher Report, Kerry Miller, that they think Pete Crow-Armstrong, or at least he does, is eventually going to sign for $250 million. Pete's not a free agent until 2030, right? So, I mean, this isn't like tomorrow here. But what you see with a lot of these teams is that they'll go ahead and target their superstar players now and get a much better deal than if the guy becomes a superstar player. So the Cubs could go out there, maybe they sign him for like, $100 million. And that's going to be way less than 250, but it's a risk. And the more I thought about it, and I do love Hollywood Pete, as I call him. I think he's a great player. But I just worry if I'm the Cubs about going out there and giving a 23-year-old that kind of money because you're anticipating him being, a phenom. And as much as I like him, and I do like him a lot, the second half of the season makes you think like, okay, what are we going to get? Are we going to get the first half Pete, or are we going to get the second half Pete? Me personally, I look at his game and I say, if he doesn't start to have a better discipline of the strike zone, he's going to continue to struggle at the plate. Love everything about him. I think you guys know, he's the best defender at his position in baseball. And I mean any position. I think he's the best defender in baseball. I think he's number one. I don't care what the fielding Bible says. I love him running the bases. I love the intensity that he plays with. Love the power that he brings. But if you're going to give a guy that much of a commitment when you got him already signed until 2030, now I know there's going to be arbitration in there and stuff, but I don't know. Is he Mike Trout? I don't know yet. And what would make me feel a whole lot better is if I saw him become a more disciplined hitter like Kyle Tucker. And the thing that I loved about Kyle Tucker's game, and there's a lot of things to love about it when he's healthy, but even when he was hurt, he's so good at his plate discipline that he finds a way to get on base. He doesn't get himself out a lot. And I think for Pete Crow-Armstrong, he's so aggressive. He kind of has that same complex that Javi Baez has, whereas they'll get themselves out a lot. And you love the aggressiveness, but over the course of time, you got to work on that to be able to have sustained success, unless you're Vladimir Guerrero's dad. So, I'm just thinking like, I don't know if I need to jump on this today. Maybe you do it next year. Maybe you do it halfway through the season. But until I see that aspect of growth, I'm at the point where I'm like, you know what? I'm good with him. I love him, but I'm not convinced that he's going to be able to sustain success in the major leagues for years and years and years. He gets that figured out, and I love everything about the way he plays. So, just kind of wanted to throw that out there. And that's just my opinion. Look, who am I? But I mean, I think that he is so good. And you guys know, if you've been watching this channel, I've been excited about him getting there for a long time. But that's the part of the game that I just haven't seen a whole lot of growth. You talk about Cade Horton, and I always wondered, like, okay, is he going to be able to develop some of those secondary pitches around his amazing slider and the fastball? Yeah, changeup got a lot better. Curveball, was always good, got better. And he just became a more disciplined pitcher. And I think that with Pete Crow-Armstrong, when we saw him struggle, he got himself out a lot by hitting those pitches that are just off the plate that he could take for balls, but he puts them in play and he gets out, or he fouls them off and he's behind in the count. Hey, we're brought to you by our friends at AveD. Mick Nation, join Mick Nation. Hit that QR code right there and be a part of Mick Nation. We do, even right now, World Series, NFL, college football picks. We'll do probably basketball here coming up when football's over. You get a chance to win cash and prizes, including swag from the Cubs baseball channel. So we've sent one out. We got one winner. We're going to keep on doing that. We appreciate you guys so much for being a part of it. And might as well take advantage of it. Take you 5 minutes and you get to pick some games and then win some stuff. One of the other questions that we have right now that we're talking about, and we've kind of gotten on this topic a few times on the channel, is Shōta Imanaga's contract. And basically, it's a complex contract. And one of the reasons why is that if you sign Shōta, you've got him for 3 years. I know the way that the season ended for Shōta, but at the same time, I mean, he has been really good. When he signed his original contract, it was 4 years, $53 million, right? And, part of that was this, where you have to basically pick up the option. So if the Cubs pick up the option, they have the option. It would be a 3-year deal, and it would cost the Cubs $57.75 million. He's been 24-11 and a 3.28 ERA in his 54 Cubs starts. If you decline the option, then Shōta has his own 1-year option at $15.25 million. So, okay, that's a lot of money. And he gets to decide. Or he can decide he wants to be a free agent. There's so many different things when it comes to Shōta's contract. The thing to watch for me is if the Cubs don't sign him, is that when they go after Michael King? Is that when they go after Framber Valdez? Is that when we look at Dylan Cease, and all those guys that we kind of talked about at the beginning of the show? The money that they didn't spend on Shōta. And how would you feel about Shōta pitching for a different team? Do you think he's done enough to get that contract, or is it not worth it? He's in his, mid-30s now. He didn't have a very good end of the season, and the Cubs didn't feel comfortable enough to pitch him in Game 5 against the Brewers, which I thought they were going to, but they didn't. They went with the bullpen instead. So that shows you that they're not a lot of confidence. Gave up a ton of home runs. Is it something that you can fix, or is it too risky? This one's a tough one because I'd really love to have Shōta back on the roster next year. But I also understand that it's a business and you may feel better about not having, what if he's not good this year? Then you got 2 more years after that. And would anyone want to trade for him if you did have him and he didn't, I don't know. The other guy and look, I'm just telling you this because it is such a big decision. And if they don't pick up his option, that's huge news, right? Because he was the Cubs All-Star, and he's been one of their best players over the last couple of years. But when it came postseason time, unless he was pitching through an injury, he wasn't there. Now, the other guy whose pending free agency is worth talking about is Drew Pomeranz. And, I mean, think about what Pomeranz has kind of become now. You're talking about a guy who was in the minor leagues, and the Cubs scouted him. They said, hey, you know what? It's worth taking a risk. And they basically got him. They picked the Mariners' pocket for him. And 57 appearances, 4 starts. The guy had a 2.17 ERA and 57 strikeouts in 49 2/3 innings. It took him forever to get back to the major leagues, but he was really good. And then in the playoffs, he had a 1.50 ERA and won a game to no losses. It's just so interesting to see how guys that don't give up on the career, sometimes find a way to bounce back. And he's kind of that, he's kind of that guy that you look at and you go, man, this is why you don't quit. So he becomes an unrestricted free agent in the offseason, and he's kind of projected to make around $5 million on a one-year contract. If I'm the Cubs, I'm picking this up all day. And they may have some competition for him. There may be some other guys who, are going to cost a lot of money. Taylor Rogers, they traded for him. Do you bring him back? Michael Soroka, I have no interest in that guy. Ryan Brazier, Caleb Thielbar actually had a pretty good season. The Cubs are going to have to decide what they're going to do. But of all those guys, Pomeranz, and I think I'm missing a couple, Pomeranz is the guy that I feel like you'd love to see come back. And who knows, maybe after a year of being in the big leagues, maybe next year could be better. But it would be hard to top that, because what an awesome turn of around, comeback player of the year type stuff there for Drew Pomeranz. And I don't know if they'd give it to a middle reliever, late inning reliever, but he definitely deserves to be in that conversation. Now, the last thing that I wanted to talk about was former Cubs bench coach Brandon Hyde. He was with Baltimore as their manager, and he got fired. And he's been interviewing for other jobs. I heard his name in the Giants sweepstakes. He interviewed with the Nationals. If Ryan Flaherty ends up going to the Padres and the Cubs have that bench job available, I really hope they bring Hyder back. I think that Baltimore made a mistake in pinning the failure of the team on him. He's a great manager, and he's a great baseball guy. These are the type of guys that you lose when you win a World Series. That's hard to replace in your organization. He was a farm director type guy and the player development guy, spent time in the, as a manager in the minor leagues. He's a great baseball dude. And I just hope that the Cubs have him on the radar as someone that if we lose Flash, having him back would be fantastic. And I always thought when Joe Madden was there, and you could tell that relationship was kind of souring with the front office, that Brandon Hyde would have been the guy they would have replaced him with had he not gone to Baltimore. And that opened the door for David Ross, who I felt like didn't have the experience to be the manager of the Cubs at the time. Now you got experience as a big league manager, all the stuff he helped the organization do on their way to win the World Series or winning the World Series. And then now, guess what? Let's go ahead and, and if we need a bench coach, let's bring him back. I think so. All right, guys. Again, thank you for being here. Make sure that you join Mick Nation and Avenue D. We'll get back together again soon. Get in the comments. Tell me anything you want to talk about, including the Cardinals. I know I bring those guys up every show. Even though now I don't even know what they're doing. I haven't even looked, but I know what we're doing, trying to figure out what the direction of this organization is going to be. Hey, also, as you plan your next vacation, I want you to think about Sevierville, Tennessee, in the Smoky Mountains. Great place, short trip from Chicago. I think there's a direct flight from Chicagoland down here to Sevierville, the mountains. Chicago and Chicagoland folks make up one of the biggest groups of visitors that they have. And they wanted me to pass this along to you. Talking fish and a talking bear. Go.
When you head to the Smoky Mountains, it's only natural to visit Sevierville.
Even we had to check it out.
And we've been here our whole lives.
Experience the adventure of a lifetime.
I'm king of the world.
Even you can get a bird's eye view of the Smokies.
You're going down, Billy. Whoa.
Your Smokies start here.